believe in a police state. However, I do believe in law and order. I do believe that we have mechanisms in place that can allow serious, real change. This is not the mechanism to do that. Martin Luther King pretty much showed us the pattern that works. Peaceful protest, not angry, violent riots. Angry, violent riots in this country have rarely changed anything. Except for the fact that it really, the people that they could have persuaded to be on their side, they've now polarized them against you. If you are one of those people that believe in rioting, you will polarize people that you could have convinced to come to your side to be against you. And look, there are a number of blacks who do not espouse and believe in this type of stuff. It's not just whites. It's brown people too. They're saying this is if you're protesting police behavior and what happened to Mr. Gray by breaking into, looting, and destroying a CVS drugstore. What did that CVS drugstore do? Nothing. It's just a business that's out there to sell a product and service. How about in Ferguson, where something similar happened? All those businesses, including many black-owned businesses, how were they at fault? But you looted, you destroyed, and burned to the ground a lot of them, putting them out of business, destroying their livelihood, so they can no longer be a positive contributor to the neighborhood that you say needs positive contribution. How do you destroy something and then complain that there isn't a positive contribution in that neighborhood? You can't destroy a neighborhood and then complain there's nobody who's willing to put invest in your neighborhood. Well, no, they're going to look at it and say, well, geez, every time you guys get upset, you're going to, burn down my business. Why would I invest in your neighborhood then? And this is something that a lot of people are starting to come to realize, unfortunately. And some people told me, they say, Rod, I bet you many of those people down there who are rioting and looting right now in Baltimore are not even from that neighborhood. And probably not even from, Baltimore. They're probably right. They're probably bussed in. They probably drive in order to cause trouble. And then they leave and go home to their relatively safe, quiet, non-rioting neighborhoods and leave death and destruction behind in somebody else's. This is not how you affect change. This is by far the worst way that you can even attempt to try to effect change. Not going to happen. In fact, it's all it's going to serve to do is to have a bunch of lawmakers, especially liberal ones, create and pass more laws that will restrict your freedom and liberty and your ability to make decisions for yourself and your neighborhood. They'll take that away from you. And they'll use this as a propaganda tool to give themselves credibility to do that. Yeah, it's all about perception. And look, just like the Boston Marathon bomber. After looking at this retrospectively, at first I was shocked. During the Boston Marathon, the police, and let's face it, Boston, Massachusetts, very liberal. They were making fiat decisions. No backpacks, in the race area, no blankets, lots of restrictions. And I was taken aback by listening to these radio hosts in the morning who seemed to think that was a good idea. And anybody who was against that was just a fool. Well, actually, They're the fools. Because we're letting the government decide as something innocuous as whether or not we can have a... Just because somebody decided to make a bomb out of a pressure cooker and put it in a backpack and leave it somewhere, it automatically means you can't... that they're going to stop future bombs by not allowing backpacks? Is that the only way you can bring a bomb to an event? Well, absolutely not. But it gives a false sense of security to the people around you by saying, hey, no backpacks. So all those people who have gone to the many Boston marathons before and who carried backpacks and had no thought or intent on being destructive, well, now they can't because of the actions of two men. So two men still hold a city hostage. How do you affect change by limiting people's ability to live? You can't affect change that way. How do you affect change when you believe that police are being brutal, overly brutal, when you give them cause to be brutal? I mean, let's face it. You're down there destroying public and private property, and now you're injuring and nearly killing police officers. And because of that, there are going to be laws now that are going to come out. There are going to be city ordinances that are going to come out of this that are going to limit the law-abiding citizens' rights, their liberty, their access, simply because of a few people. The vast majority of us are law-abiding citizens, but because of the actions of an extreme minority, we are now going to have our vast majority liberties, freedoms, and choices either eliminated or severely limited. That's not how you affect change. Because at some point, you're going to push the majority too far. And then all hell will break loose. You know, there has never been a time in history when the general public, when the government has become so oppressive, the general public does not rise up in some fashion or another. You know, if you're not defeated from without, you are going to be defeated from within. History is replete with this. Over and over again. You know, this is how why dictators don't generally last. This is how, you know, I mean, and these dictators, they have to become more and more restrictive and brutal. I mean, hell, look at North Korea. The only way that they're able to keep control over there is by being as brutal as possible. Overly brutal. The only way that Cuba stays the way Cuba stays is because they're brutal down there. People just don't have any freedom. They don't have the opportunity to make life better for themselves, unless, of course, they completely buy into the government propaganda line. And they pledge undying loyalty. Then they'll have a way to make life better for them and their families. But they'll do it by brutalizing and oppressing their fellow citizens. Now, is that the way you really want to affect change? That is not the way that you affect change in a free society. You can affect change by protest, peaceful protest. But the change that you are going to affect with violent riot is to be answered with more laws, less freedom. And that's the way history has shown it always works. You know, people have a right to survive. The people have a right for their government to survive. if that government is supposed to be for the people, of the people, by the people. But that government, of the people, by the people, for the people, is going to change dramatically if some of the people keep acting out and keep acting up and abusing their privilege. And no, I'm not saying that protesting is a privilege. We have a God-given right to be able to express our pleasure or displeasure with our leaders. This is, we elect them, they work for us, so we have a right to express our pleasure or displeasure for what they do. But they're limiting us on how we can affect that displeasure, how we can express that displeasure, how we can tell them about our disdain. Oh, now they're going to come out with laws that are going to limit your ability to come together. They're going to limit your ability to gather. They're going to limit the number of people that can gather in one place. And if you try to exceed that, even though if you're being totally peaceful and there is no intent in anybody's heart or mind to start some sort of violent reaction or riot, they still will accuse you of conspiring to do so. And the leadership of those who put this group together or that event together will end up going to jail. Look, folks, don't doubt me on this, folks. This is the progress that nations take to go from freedom to less freedom to no freedom. You have to understand it. You have to recognize it before you can stop it, change it, reverse it. And you have to understand that what's going on in Baltimore right now is not something that is good for freedom, because it has nothing to do with freedom. It has everything to do with oppression. You can't fight oppression with more oppression. It'd be the same thing as saying, okay, World War II. We're gonna beat the hell out of the Nazis and defeat the Nazis, but then we're gonna let communism take over, which, by the way, we did. So you're going to trade one oppressor for another one. You're going to trade one brutal dictator for another one. How does that help the general population? It doesn't. It only helps those who are in power. And understand, people in those types of positions do not share power. And they will be as brutal as they possibly can to prevent the sharing of that power. They are not going to allow you or anyone else to take that power away. Once they have it, once you give it to them, they do not let go of it willingly, even when you ask them nicely. It always takes blood. Now I ask you, do you want the riots of Ferguson, in Baltimore, and in other places to require your blood, your family's blood, your posterity's blood to change it? To come back around? Are you going to require that? So once again, freedom and liberty can ring true and reign in the Western world? I don't think so.
Daenerys Targaryen. She says she is the mother of dragons. But would you trust her with your kids? Her father was a maniac. She palled around with Dothraki terrorists. She asked the city of Karth for a government bailout. Then she lost 3 baby dragons after placing them in an unlocked wooden box. An unlocked wooden box. This Khaleesi wants to be queen of the 7 kingdoms, but can she be trusted? Daenerys Targaryen. Wrong for dragons. Wrong for the realm. Pray for